Greetings, Cardinal Sin Nation. It is I, Cardinal Sin, and please be welcome. Have yourself a sit down for Into the Fringe number 77. We sure appreciate you being here, and especially at this early time, but that is not going to stop us from having a wonderful show. And let's get right to it, shall we? Our guest on Into the Fringe today is artist, author, and researcher Jason Gleaves. Welcome back to Into the Fringe, my friend.
Hi there.
Good to see you.
Welcome to be on your show.
We certainly are happy to have you back. And just so that people know, and I forget to remember, I don't know, I think I would lose my head if it weren't bolted on. This is the book that we are going to be discussing today, your new book, UFO Encounters Up Close and Personal. And I understand that we are going to give away an autographed copy of the new book to our lucky winner today, right?
Yep. I'll sign that and get that out to them, whoever
Excellent.
wins it.
Very good. Well, thank you. That's very generous. And we'll be doing that at the end of the show, so stick around if you want to be eligible to win that. And remember, you must be present in the chat to be eligible to win. So, Jason, before we get into the book itself, can you tell us about how you got involved in ufology and UFOs in general?
Yeah, how I sort of became involved in this deep world, as we call it, of strangeness. It was when I had a sighting with my sister when I was 7 years old, in Liverpool, in Aintree in Liverpool, UK. And we were playing upstairs in a relative's house. We were house sitting at the time for them when they went on holiday. And basically, we both saw a silver disc-shaped object hovering outside the window. And we both watched it for a while, as I remember. And then it shot off at high velocity. And then we carried on playing as if nothing had happened. And very strange incident. But
how
then,
big would you say it was?
Going back, but like I've said before, I actually forgot about this actual incident.
You don't know how many times that happens in this field.
Yeah,
or maybe you do, actually.
Missing time, anything involved, but
it's amazing how people, hunters, all different kinds of people that see UFOs, just forget about it for many years of their life. Yeah. And then something will nudge it loose later. And I'm like, the most important thing you've ever seen? How could you possibly forget that?
Yeah. And I like I said, I'd forgotten about it. And it was only later when I got into ufology deeper, setting up the Facebook page and, around about 2014, maybe a bit earlier. And my sister reminded me of what we saw, and she said, just in passing, do you remember when we both saw that craft, outside the window, that object? And
the almost exact same thing happened to Peter Robbins and his sister Helen.
Yeah. And again, he's actually, in the book as well with the encounter. But that was basically how I sort of was introduced to ufology and got into it in that respect. And then later there was an incident when I was serving in the Royal Air Force, and I was stationed at a base which is in the UK called RAF Cosford. It's in near Birmingham. Yeah, and it's a training camp for when airmen first join the Air Force. They pass their basic training, then they go on to the trade training, and they're trained as armourers and things like that at base. But it's also quite a big museum as well, and they got an awful lot of original aircraft there. You know, like the first of everything. And
sure.
And this anyway, this other incident happened. It's all there online. You can see all this information. It's there because the actual documents were released by the Air Force, and it was basically a young airman that was doing his guard duty on the airfield guard post. And this was late at night. My friend, one of my friends, was the orderly corporal in the guard room that night. And it was late evening in March of 1993. And all of a sudden, the radio kicked into life, and it was this young airman screaming down the radio to get the guard commander out to the airbase, or the airfield, the guard post which he was at. And he was basically saying there was a huge object hovering over the airfield, and he was obviously scared, you know, frightened.
Who did he ask for? The base commander?
The guard commander.
The guard commander.
Yeah, there's like a sergeant guard commander who's over the actual guard room at the time, so that's his duty, of, you know. And they all jumped in the Land Rovers and Sherpa vans, and the RAF police, they jumped in with them. And they all went out to the airfield, and they all saw this craft, which was hovering over the airfield, which was a huge, dark black, triangular-shaped craft. Again, this is around the 90s, so it was probably like the Belgian flap, you know.
It's echoes of Rendlesham, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and this object was described to be the size of a battleship. It was huge in size.
Yeah.
No sound, just a hum to it, and you know, and they all witnessed this object hovering and everything, and it took off at high velocity, and it actually went on to another nearby RAF base, which is nearby RAF Shawbury, which is about 20 miles as the crow flies from Cosford, and the on-duty air traffic controller witnessed the craft. Whether I'm sure that 100% they actually got a radar lock, but he witnessed this craft coming in the same, and it was firing pencil lasers down towards the ground and the impression the air traffic controller got was that it was actually looking for something. You know, that was the impression. But the rest of that evening, leading up to it and after, there was other sightings throughout the UK by on-duty policemen and members of the public. And again, all this information is all online. Anyone can actually read. I did write about it in my first book, UFO Photo, and it gives you all the gate, you know, the actual where it all happened and everything related. And then, yeah, a lot of strange things happened in the respect. And then I got into, I've always been interested in UFOs and the unexplained and things like that, because I've always read, you know, the magazines, and before the internet, that's the way we found out our information. We went to the library or we bought the magazines, didn't we? And the TV shows. That's all there was. Yeah, we had the likes of Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. I was glued to that every week, you know, and that's how we got our, you know, our information, you know, and built up on the cases. And then I would start to, obviously the cases I was brought up on, the famous cases, you know, I would try and, you know, dig deep like any good researcher would do, you know, get in there and find out as much as you can. And then I'd started to analyze the photographs, actually started running them through the, you know, the Photoshop and things like that. Because a lot of these photographs are pre-digital, so you're talking, you know, 35 millimeter, you know, film media that was used. So, you know, it's more curious how people, if they were going to fake something, how they would do it, whether they'd use a piece of glass or, you know, tie something up with fishing line, smoke, you know.
Mirrors, right?
Yeah. That's really how the Facebook page started, because I would start going through cases and then I would start putting the information, and my research would go on there. I'd look at stuff on the moon, Mars. I just went everywhere with this. Not just UFOs. I went through Bigfoot.
So
You name it.
It's safe to say you're really a lifer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I call it the Richard Dreyfuss syndrome. Which is the character of Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Of course, yeah.
I'm sure all the viewers have seen that film where he goes through this mad, after his sighting, he goes through a mad, couple of days of not wanting more information, and he didn't know why.
This huge pile of mashed potatoes in the shape of Devil's Tower.
And not knowing why, and that's basically what everybody, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners and viewers have been down the same road as you and I. You've got that Richard Dreyfuss
kind of that lifelong fanatical interest. Actually, on Into the Fringe, we do have the good fortune to have sort of an intermediate level audience, so you don't have to go through Roswell all the time, and we're all like sick to death of that, right?
Yeah, but everybody goes down those roads anyway, because the ufology is pretty much like, that's what the second book I wrote, that's why I called it the Ufology Umbrella, because that's the way I see ufology, the way it all cascades off into all these different categories, ETs, craft, sightings, abductions, all different directions. If you have
a copy nearby, feel free to pull it up Into the Frame, because
that was the first book I wrote.
I don't think we've touched on that one before.
That's the first book, UFO Photo.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, really, I go over. There's the Cosford case we've just been speaking about. There's the actual
all your own illustrations, of course.
Yeah, everything through. There's everything, the MOD paperwork. And then I go into more famous cases. I go show people how unidentified, where birds can be mistaken for UFOs. I go into the electromagnetic spectrum. I explain to people, it focusing your camera, the difference that you can get,
Very cool.
And then I go into actual real cases, and probably one of the famous cases I go into is the Battle of Los Angeles.
Battle of LA, yeah.
But I actually analysed the craft, which people have never seen before.
Interesting.
So that's the actual craft from the original photograph. So, that the first book was what I got my teeth into, was analysing images and footage for people.
And what'd you say, that was 2014?
Yeah, that was back a while ago. 18. That was 18 now, 2018. And then the second book is the Ufology Umbrella.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that one is different to the first, because as you get into
that looks
research,
like a Facebook encyclopedia.
Yeah, and it explains the 7 separate categories of close encounters, where people just realize, they actually just assumed it was 1, 2, and 3, and the close encounter of the third kind really was introduced by Dr. Hynek, who also had the cameo role in the movie Close Encounters himself, but
which really, they recreated on Project Blue Book, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. And basically this, I go into the 7 categories of close encounter, and I just explain with cases, because obviously it goes to 7. So, you've got your sightings, your interactions. The more common one lately is the bit like what the Dr. Stephen Greer's doing, the CE5s.
Yeah,
where you can go out and have the interactions with the beings.
If you believe him,
Yeah, but I'm just trying to give an out of what the actual thing, and then they go into the human hybrids, and that type of thing. Which
Jacobs
is
territory.
Yeah, so I go through all that and explain that really to everybody, and cool. It's really people that are setting out in ufology, and if they need something, if they want to go and do a sky watch, in the back of the book it actually shows you
and tells you what to do if you're in a group and how to go about it, things like that. And then the third book, which is the new book, like I said, the one we're covering now, I through actually my research and everything I've done over the past few years in ufology, I've been very, very lucky to actually become friends with a lot of the people in ufology. And I wanted to know how people in modern day ufology, how they got into it. What was the actual thing that pulled them in? Was it a sighting? Was it an experience? Was it just a case like everybody else, And I just approached all these different people, basically just saying to them, could you just give me a piece on what grabbed you, what pulled you in? So, I've got people in there, like Philip Mantle and Malcolm Robinson, even Bruce Maccabee, who's one of my idols, really, because he's...
And, another guy that I'm not sure we can entirely trust.
Yeah, well, he's really been around.
He's controversial.
Yeah, well...
But I can see, from your background, with the Photoshop and looking for hoaxes and stuff like that, I can see how that you and an optical physicist for the Navy could have some common ground.
Yeah, so I basically asked people through all different, roles or disciplines, whatever you want to call it, and they came back, like Kathleen Martin, we all know she's the niece of...
She's a sweetheart.
Yeah, lovely lady, And
we've been lucky enough to have her on the show, and she knows what the fuck of which she speaks. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, she's a brilliant researcher herself.
The UFO grandmother almost. She's just the sweetest lady.
Yeah, and she actually gave me obviously the case that got her into it was obviously relatives, Betty and Barney Hale, which is one of the most iconic cases in ufology because it's the beginning, and everybody reads about it, goes down. But she actually explains where she sat in the room with Betty and Barney as they're actually telling.
When she was young,
when they're actually telling, of what happened to them, So again, that's something that pulled her in. A good friend, Derek Safori, he's a guy living down near Rendlesham Forest. He gives great tours and guides, to people that want to go actually out in the woods, at the, the base. It's the famous case, isn't it, in the 80s, Rendlesham Forest, Colonel Holt, everybody else involved. But he had a sighting which was a day or so before, and it actually made the newspapers and everything down there, the same as Rendlesham did, and it was, all about the same time. So it's very well connected to the case.
Do you think that it's true that some of these cases, like the ones that you've mentioned so far today, that have sightings on down the road a little bit later, do you think that they are not connected by the MOD or the media or whoever on purpose, or does it just seem that way?
I think sometimes it seems that way, but then I wouldn't put it past. I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't rule it out completely that, the media are playing into it, in regards to playing with the military, going down that road. I don't know. I've always said, I'm ex-military myself, but I've always said, when the secret covert craft, which there is, I can remember the first time I ever saw the stealth bomber, the F-17, was during the Gulf War, the first Gulf War. I'd never seen it before that. So, and that looked...
And they say that it has a radar signature almost like that of a pigeon.
No, it's nothing at all. Yeah, it's anyway. It was way ahead of its time, and if the first time you saw that aeroplane, it's something unusual. So it's unidentified. It's not what you know. So I've always said that the military, if people see covert craft and they say it's a UFO, that's brilliant for the military because they don't have to explain anything.
Well, that's what happened to Kenneth Arnold, the guy that had the very first sighting. You know, he was a pilot, private pilot, and he saw these things, these chevron shaped. I guess I'd hesitate to call them discs, but flying saucers.
They were,
and he figured they were just those newfangled jets that they were talking about.
There's a model that I've done of that was the shape, if you can see there. So it was obviously, if you look at it from the front elevation, it's a disc.
It looks like a disc.
Yeah, but if you look at it, the top elevation,
yeah,
and that was the shape he saw. Obviously the craft at the time. Yeah. So, that's just to give.
I have two of my favorite, actually all of my favorite UFO art as far as the 3D stuff is the stuff that you've done. Not to say that I don't like your drawings and all that kind of stuff too in your paintings, but I've just never seen anybody have that much facility before with statues and I don't even know what you'd call it, sculpture of all the iconic UFO things that you've done. I keep them in a very special place because I found out they're actually kind of fragile.
Yes, I do have. That's the only problem that
you packed the hell out of them. Both packages got here just fine, but once I put them up and found that they, fell over, I was like, no, they break so easily. No, I'm melting.
It's the resin. They're made out of the resin, you see. So it's but then you've got obviously the likes of. I've been working closely with Calvin Parker. Again, he's the one of a pair of guys, which again everybody knows at the Pascagoula, Mississippi sighting in the early 70s. And Calvin, and I've actually been working with Calvin on a new graphic novel that's out next year for the 50th anniversary.
That's great. That's great.
But that's obviously one of the beings that took Calvin and Charlie Hickson from the docks when they were fishing. It's obviously not painted in the colour, but the
ugly one, right?
Yeah, the ugly one. That's what Calvin calls him. That's what the name. But then I've done
that's a harrowing abduction experience to read about, and I can only imagine relive.
Yeah, and the good thing about it that I've worked with him is when he was taken on board the craft, it was a female ET that he had an interaction with who did procedures on him.
I believe he called her the evil bitch.
Yeah, I've heard other things he's called them as well, but I won't go into that.
We could say on the show, but he might not want to put in his book.
Yeah, and he basically I've done like a police e-fit with him of the female ET, and you can see behind me it's a poster I've done, which is how it's signed by Calvin and myself. But you can see in the top corner there, that's an actual face.
I don't suppose that's something you can get down and show us. That's on a light box or something, right?
Yeah, it's on it. I can bring it a bit closer.
Oh, cool. Yes, please.
So that's the actual poster. Again, it's signed. And it's going to be a limited edition, so there's only going to be about 30 of them. I'm not going to do any more. Well,
sign me up for one. And for a second, while we're on the subject, let's go ahead and plug all of your social media because, boy, do you have a lot. So you have the UF Only Facebook account, right?
Yes, they've got UF Only, which is on Facebook. That's the web page. I think there's about 23,000 people that follow on that.
It's a nice big group.
Yeah, anything I analyze or anything related, it goes on there.
Kind of use that as your blog.
Yeah, and people can contact me through there as well. Because I get a lot of people sending images to me to analyze. Of film.
And I take it your Twitter's probably fairly busy, huh?
Yeah, all the same thing. I've got a YouTube channel as well. So if I analyze,
oh well, gosh, we got to plug your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's the same name and everything, but it's basically I had to do a YouTube channel because when I started to analyze the actual videos, they were too long. I couldn't put them on Facebook, so I had to basically put them onto.
There you are. I'm subscribed to you. I'm subscribed to your channel, but I will definitely put it in the chat so that everybody can.
But there's
here my wrench already has the Facebook link in there. Thank you, Anti-Derivative Jill.
A couple of documentaries on there that people can watch as well that I've made of ETs and things. But this is a limited edition. This will be. But what we were saying anyway, that's the female ET that we're taking on board. And that's the actual sort of fit we did with the illustrations in the book. I haven't got anything
of Calvin's.
Yes, this will be the graphic novel that's out next year.
Wow.
I don't know.
Actually, as far as Calvin Parker said, did the female actually look that human?
Yes. Yeah.
I never knew that.
There's just a couple of little things I've done for the book, the graphic novel.
Looks great, man.
So
good stuff.
It's so when he was abducted and taken on board. And it goes through his entire story leading up to working in the docks, going fishing, being abducted, then going in with the sheriff afterwards, and then being taken to the Air Force base, and it goes right. Yeah. And it's been a real pleasure to do it with him. There's a writer in the States, Martin Powell, who's actually doing the writing for it. He normally does Batman and Superman comics and things like that. So it's going to be amazing in that respect because and with Philip as well. We've done like a thing, and I can't wait to get it out. I'm not sure about the actual cover, whether that'll be the cover maybe.
Oh, love it.
So we've got a couple of ideas. We're not sure yet what we're going to do. So
I think those both look really good, but what do I know?
Yeah.
You're the professional artist. And may I say, those not only look really good, but it must be really fulfilling personally to you as a creative, as an artist, as a writer, to be able to contribute these wonderful drawings that you do so well. For instance, let me get to our share the screen, and here you've got the War of the Worlds.
Yeah, that was my case I put forward,
and of course our friend Philip Mantle.
Yeah, great guy, Philip.
And he looks like he's saying, "Cheers, mate."
Yeah, with a pint in his hand. Yeah.
And Fire in the Sky, and your artwork is just really, really incredible.
That was Philip's case that he actually had.
That happened to him.
Not him, but that was one of his first cases he investigated in the UK. That was in Wakefield, and Mrs. Westerman, and it was her 8-year-old daughter and the kids, and they saw this craft land. they thought it was a downed aircraft at the time, a normal civilian aircraft. And then they went back, and they all went back to the field. And that's through what I've actually been, the details I've got of the story and everything. That's how I come up with the illustration. And that was what they saw at the time with the beings and everything.
Sorry, just going through some of the chat. It's very active for this time of day here in the central time zone in the States. It's pretty active. But as long as they're not haters and they're just here to love on us, it's okay, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So for those that aren't aware, can you give us a summary and kind of take us by the hand and tell us about your new book, UFO Encounters Up Close and Personal?
Yeah, well, like I explained before, it's basically I wanted to know how fellow colleagues, researchers, people I've read about, I've been brought up reading their books, and now they've become personal friends. And I wanted to know what pulled them in, what actually grabbed them to, want to be in this mad world we're in.
What did you find?
A lot of the stories, it was a bit varied. There's about 50 people in the book. I could have had a lot more, but obviously I had to have so many.
Did they all more or less have an experience that got them involved?
No, some people just had a case that they actually pulled them in. So it was like a famous UFO case that actually grabbed them in. Other people had experiences of abductions. A good one was Mike Heston Rogers, who I don't know. Mike. He was the lead hand or whatever of the group with Travis Walton of the sighting, and that was in Sick Graves, isn't it? And in the Apache National Forest. And basically, he's become a good friend as well.
Has
pretty
he?
Much. Yeah.
I think I probably mentioned this to you last time, but I've been trying like a Dickens to get in touch with him.
All right.
So maybe before we sign off, after we sign off the air, but we're still in backstage, maybe you can hook me up with his info.
But I wanted to
have him on.
Say to him, when I first approached Mike, I said, would you give me something that was it the case with Travis that got you into the ufology realm? Mm-hmm. And it really was, because he didn't have any interest before that of anything, leading into it. And he kept saying to me, surely you want to speak to Travis, you don't want to speak to me. It's Travis's story. And I said, no, I want your story. You were in
unvarnished truth.
Yeah, you were in the truck at the time. You're the guy who
Mike Rogers passed all of his polygraph tests.
Yeah, and you're the guy who thought Travis was killed. You saw Travis being taken, lifted in the air by the craft.
How do you explain that?
And well, he does. That's what he does. Yeah, from Mike's point of view, and he's done a really good job of it. Actually, and where he drove off and then went back to get Travis, thinking he'd been killed. And everybody knows the story.
Yeah, he must have had terror strike his heart.
Yeah. And basically that's what I wanted. I wanted his account. I didn't want. Everybody knows Travis's account because it's everywhere, isn't it? But they haven't got the real accounts of the other guys. They have if you dig deep, but mm-hmm. I wanted it from him.
Yeah, but a lot of them wanted to kind of fade into the background and not be associated with this as much.
Yeah.
Although every time they ask for new polygraph tests, they all take them and they all pass.
Yeah.
It was just the first one that Travis took. He was still so shaken up. I think that's why he didn't pass.
Yeah. But then, and again, just skirting over a couple of names. You've got people in there who, like I said, who I've always looked up to, and they've come out with the stories. And we got Mary Rodwell. Everybody, I'm sure, knows Mary, lovely lady.
Do tell.
And I first came across Mary when she was doing a regression session with Peter Slattery from
There's
Australia.
A great name for an album, huh?
Yeah.
Regression session.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? And and Pete's become a real good friend too. The same as James Gilliland at the SETI Ranch. You go in.
They always say never meet your heroes, and I have yet to meet one that I didn't enjoy and always remember fondly meeting.
Yeah. And basically, I wanted to, and with Mary, the case she actually came up with is a case called the Chinese Roswell, and it's a case I've never heard of, and I'm sure a lot of people haven't heard of, and it goes into.
That's not the Qingdao province, is it?
Yes, yeah, where a down craft actually landed in a military base. And again, the way the Chinese had been covered up and everything, and she'd been speaking to the witnesses, and there was recovered ET extraterrestrials. It's fascinating to read. It's amazing. But that was the case that pulled her into it.
Does there seem to be more evidence or more firsthand testimony to that UFO crash retrieval than most?
Yeah, because she's actually spoken to the witnesses themselves, and the accounts, and have even got the detail of, they weren't the typical type of grey beings like Roswell. That type of that people know of, the greys with the almond-shaped eyes. It was they look more like a ferret type of being, if one way of putting it. So
I've always found them personally terrifying.
Yeah. It's there's so many different types of obviously being out there. But then again, if you look at the book, I've got people in there, musicians, in there. I've got presenters. I've got Howard Hughes, a good friend, a radio presenter in the UK, and he comes up with the case.
Not Howard Hughes.
Not the Howard Hughes with it. No. Even though Howard Hughes is Howard Hughes, he's
what UFO stories he could tell, huh?
Well, yeah, he could. But he comes up with his grandmother's sighting that she always came out. She had no interest in UFOs, and again, it was a place in Liverpool called Waterloo, and for years she would talk about this sighting, seeing the craft, but she had no interest in UFOs and everything, so it made it more of a mysterious story, if you call it that. So I go into that with it, with him. And again, there's a musician, a friend, Brian Nash, we call him, and he was the guitarist in the 80s band Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Yeah. He was in Frankie Goes to Hollywood, the band, the UK band. He was, and again, he goes over just generally the experiences, when we're young, we watch Doctor Who and stuff like that in the UK. You get that in the States the same, yeah. And the amount of times I was behind the sofa watching that as a kid, And
now everybody they've turned it into a bonus feature on the new remastered Blu-ray discs. They have a behind the sofa feature. Have you seen that?
No, I've seen it, but I've seen the thing you're on about, yeah. But yeah, I can remember really cool. watching Doctor Who and being frightened, watching it. And he talks about that, and I do illustrations to go with it. So it's pretty much a broad band, I could go on and just pop names off left, right, and centre, because it's probably like a who's who of in ufology that have. I'm humbled that they've come forward and given me their time and and I really do appreciate it, because it's made.
None of them took a red cent, did they?
No, nobody.
That's how you know you've got the real thing.
Yeah, genuine people who I look up to, who I've become good friends with, things like that, and they've given me their personal accounts. The Philip and Ronald,
the people like Travis Walton, whose story has never changed. Those are the people that you can trust too.
Yeah. Just like Mike, Mike virtually says what he saw to what happened with, Travis.
I guess fairly recently, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, didn't he like change his story and then turn around and say, I was just mad or something like that?
Something, yeah, there was something a few years back, wasn't there?
But they're back as bosom buddies now.
Yeah.
Is my understanding.
Well, it is what it is. It's a case, just like Calvin, Parker with the Pascagoula. Calvin didn't want anything to do with this. He wanted to. He didn't even want to go to the sheriff.
Has other plans.
Yeah. And the thing about that case with Philip Mantle, especially, there's more and more witnesses coming forward now. And again, it's growing, because I've actually spoken to a few and actually done illustrations for the book. There was somebody who was on the other side of the river to where Calvin and Charlie were abducted, and they saw the whole thing. But they also...
Oh, yeah, that's right. I saw that documentary.
I think Marie Blair, I think her name. Anyway...
That was a good documentary.
It was fantastic. It was really well
especially
made.
If folks aren't familiar with the Hickson Parker abduction in Pascagoula, it's a great introduction, and also, shows you Calvin at an emotional point at the end of the film where he's gotten this table of maybe half a dozen people who also saw what the craft that he ended up going through all that terror in.
Yeah.
And he said, thank you. I know I'm not crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good, it's been well made. It's well put together. It gives you all the facts. And again, with the new witnesses that have come forward and the detail, it
really strengthens the
whole case. Yeah.
We have a question from the chat for you. Masters Maniac Mexico says, at Jason, very interesting content. Have you heard of the German Exo magazine, and do you work together with guys like Dirk Pohlmann?
No, my book has actually been published in German, my first book, and Spanish and things like that. But no, I don't work. I don't work with any of those people. I will do if they approach me, just like anybody else. If they approach me and they want something analyzing, or if they want something, clarifying, or whatever they want, I'll help anybody.
And we have your YouTube channel here. And people were talking about the stealth bomber. Herc 130 is an aviation expert and friend of the show, and he says the F-117A Nighthawk is a cool plane. What do you know about that?
Yes, that's that's the aircraft that I first saw in Desert Storm when I was out there, and it's amazing aircraft.
And from Australia, Mr. MH says, the Ickley Moore alien case with photographic evidence was a very interesting case out of the UK.
Yeah. There's an awful lot of cases like that. I mean, again, with Pete Slattery in Australia, where I've done a documentary. I think it's on Amazon Prime and iTunes and everything at the minute, but it's called Multidimensional, and it was with James Gilliland and Mary Rodwell, the same.
Oh, wow.
And it's about Peter Slattery. I would advise anyone to actually go and actually look at his evidence. He goes out. I always laugh with Pete because I always say he sleeps with his camera. You know, literally the evidence he's got, the craft he's actually
he caught some things on the camera.
Amazing. And the footage, it's all there. Everything, all the footage I've actually analysed for him. You know, there's ETs, extraterrestrials on there as well. I mean, the great one where...
Is he the guy that's got his camera set up in his bedroom and has caught things coming into the room?
Yeah, that's Pete, yeah. And we had it, you can actually see a grey where to the side of where he set up the motion camera, and you can see a grey popping its head round the corner like this.
The part that really got me was in all the photographic video evidence of grays in the last 5 years. There's something weird going on with their legs. They don't really seem to have knees. It kind of gets blurry. It's almost like they are blurry. You know, the camera takes a good enough photo, but they're just naturally blurry.
That could be something to do with dimensional. You know, it could be, you know, a lot of people, again, you know, when I get photographs when people have taken a good example, you know, they'll take a scenic photograph with a member of the family, you know, and mountains or whatever.
And then something will pop up on top.
But it won't at the time when they're actually taking the photograph.
They don't see it at the time.
They don't see it. But the camera has actually caught that because, you know, the human eye can only see in a very, very small corridor, you know.
The visible spectrum is a very small part of the infrared, I guess the electromagnetic frequency.
That's it, yeah. And, you know, outside of what we can see, you've got the X-rays and the gamma rays and, you know, all the different radio waves out of that frequency. The same as the camera taking the photograph. And when the image is taken, when they go back, you know, later that evening, they're looking back at their photographs and they'll see a UFO in the actual image. And they'll say, at the time, there was nothing there. I couldn't see it.
That's happened to me at least on 2 occasions and probably more.
And again, that's all to do with frequency.
Right. And digital cameras pick up stuff differently from analog cameras. Yeah,
different again, you know, like infrared. I mean, you can go back to the Nimitz footage, you know, the recent Nimitz Tic Tac UFO.
It seemed for all the world, like for a while there, they just shifted their light into the infrared and you'd have to have like a starlight visor, you know, to see it.
To see it, you know, and actually, but you know, it's all to do with frequency anyway.
If I can hang back on that point for just a second, is something that's always made me really curious, is that in high profile cases, it's like they want to be seen. They put on a performative, you know, show or whatever. Like not my latest sighting, but the one before that, I was the only person who could possibly have seen it, and it was completely absurd. You know, when I went back over it later, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they be doing that? You know, and then sometimes they want to be very secretive, and then, you know, make it so that we can't see them with the visible light spectrum. Yeah. And other times they want to go on display. What is with that?
Well, this is the enigma, isn't it? This is, you know, again, you know, why do they have lights? Why do you see some UFOs have lights? You know, a light is so you want to be seen, like you just said. You know, again with the aircraft by civil aviation law have to have strobe lights. They have to have the tips of the wings, you know, the different coloured lights on them. And strobe lights and everything related, that is the whole point on an aircraft. They're there so you can see the aircraft. That's the whole point. So why do UFOs sometimes have lights?
And why do they sometimes have lights that mimic FAA lights?
Yeah, whether they're actually camouflaging themselves into... Again, the people have photographed, have had images where, they're actually coming through clouds. You can see craft within the clouds,
That was my last sighting. I was looking up into the clouds, and if I hadn't been looking right there, I would have missed it.
Yeah. So there's so many. I mean, when I first started in ufology, I was always under the thing of UFOs. They have to be nuts and bolts. They have to be actually solid, something that's actually, you can see it there, it's right in front of you,
And a lot of them are, but also there seems to be a lot of them
dimensional.
Coming in from a different dimension or parallel universe, however that would work. I mean, the kind of power that we're talking for any of this stuff, even just plain old extraterrestrial hypothesis, is massive. I mean, as far as Einsteinian equations go, relativity in all general and specific, you have to have an infinite amount of mass. It would take all the mass in the universe to make a spacecraft go faster than the speed of light, because the faster you go toward the speed of light, according to relativity anyway, the more mass you become, you take on, until to become, faster than light, you would literally have all the mass in the universe.
Yeah. It's the technology is just way above.
We know they're not doing it that way.
Yeah. Well, again, like I said, I was under the impression that it had to be a nuts and bolts, coming from the military and working on, building civilian aircraft as well in aerospace. It nuts and bolts. That's it. There is nothing else. But then, like we just explained there, there is it's the only way that they can travel the huge distances, multi-dimensional. And again, I also believe they've got bases here as well anyway.
I do too. I think it's inevitable. I'm pretty sure they have a much bigger one on the far side of the moon. And we've had Don Ecker and others on the show that presented their evidence for stuff that's on the moon and Mars that probably shouldn't be. And I have to say, there's definitely stuff that I've seen, that they've, I guess, pointed out, because everything looks like lunar regolith. It's all the same color, but once you show, the pipes in purple and the
filters,
all that stuff. I mean, it's pretty obvious that there's stuff up there that shouldn't be.
Well, there is a video on my YouTube channel, and it's of Apollo 12, and it was where they were just about to land on the moon. And I think I'm the only person that has found this. But I couldn't believe people couldn't see it. It stood out like a sore thumb to me when I analysed it and went in. But you can actually see it's the final stages as the lunar modules coming in to land on the moon itself, and it's passing over a couple of rocks, and it looks like whether it's a crater or whatever. And as it's passing over, you can see 3 lights within the rock.
Really?
Yeah, and if you go on to YouTube, it's there for everyone to see. And I just had to keep watching it, because it's like, why isn't anybody else seeing this? It's
they probably were. That's probably why they were photographing it.
blatantly obvious, Anyway, it's there, 3 lights below, and whether it's a tunnel going down or.
Yeah, you're of course familiar with Mike Barra, yes?
Yes. Yeah.
And he and Richard C. Hoagland wrote Dark Mission.
Yeah.
And he went on to write several other books. he's been a guest on the channel, and you know, we put it to him that, you know, it's difficult to be certain because we see pareidolia so easily, right?
Yeah.
But there are certain things that stick out, you know, that there's just no natural explanation for. The whole Cydonia region, the pyramids of Mars, they discussed in the book, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of it might not be all it's cooked up to be, but there's maybe 10% of their stuff that's like,
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's the same with actual images, you know, and footage of UFOs. You know, people actually come forward with them, and, you know, out of all of them, they're actually explainable, whether they're aircraft or weather phenomenon, you know, anything related. There's still that very small percentages you actually don't know what it is.
And hello to Don McDouglas, who's probably going to win our giveaway today. He wins all the other ones. No, I'm just kidding. He and Mr. H win all of them. And the mods are always here, and so sometimes they win them too. And Derek McManus is here. Greetings all. Hope everyone is well today. Sorry, I forget not to do that when I'm actually talking to somebody from the UK. Monster Huntress Rune says, LOL, I don't know why I read this as Into the Fridge. Derek says, maybe you're feeling peckish? I guess so, eating corn dogs at the moment. I told you we have a lively chat.
Yeah.
I was looking for a question that we had earlier. Hello, Lawrence Martin. Mr. MH says, from what I read, Travis was probably killed or at least close to death. It's theorized he may have been revived by the aliens after it was the beam. I tend to think that's what happened too.
Yeah, and he does himself now, you know. I think, you know, as he's got over time, he's had different theories in his head probably, and I think that is one, that he was killed and taken on board to bring back to life and medically revive him, you know.
Well, let's kind of go through the book, and why don't you talk us through the high points? And we don't want to give away the store. Obviously, we're here to sell books, but it's so much more, obviously. While you're kind of cooking that response up in your mind, I'd like you to take on a few questions.
Yeah, sure.
What cases stand out the most? Which investigators stand out the most? And what do you think a lot of people miss about UFOs? And you can, address those in any order you'd like.
Yeah. Well, the different cases, again, there's so many people. I mean, there are people in there that are unknown within ufology who just keep their head above the parapet. You know, they're actually there, but, you know, they're very good researchers and everything else related. And then, you know, like Steve Merra from the UK, you know, he's actually brought forward was a case, UFO Alley, they called it, where a lot of actual craft are seen in the UK. Ribble Valley, they call it in the UK.
I mean, there are a couple of hotspots in the UK, aren't there?
Yeah.
Which ones would you say are the most legendary for having the highest number and occurrence of sightings?
Probably.
You know, for we few ignorant Americans.
I would say that there are an awful lot of sightings within the northwest Wales area in the UK, which is over Llandudno, that area, which is the Great
That's
Orme.
south of England.
North, yeah. So you've got obviously Wales and the north of Wales, so it's in line with Liverpool, and then you come out, towards the coast. But it's on ley lines, so I think that's got an awful lot to do with
I do too.
Sightings. I actually live on a ley line myself, in the place where I live now. It's
Cool.
actually we've got a monastery and everything in the village where we live.
They always put the damn churches on the ley lines. I don't know what the deal is.
And we've still got stocks and everything. They're all there, but the actual ley lines go right out to North Wales, and there's an awful lot of cases that are reported around there. And you've got the Great Orme, which goes back to the Bronze Age, where they used to mine.
39th parallel, I think, is a lot of interesting ley line activity. And the author Sesh Hari talks about telluric currents a lot, the electromagnetic energy that flows through the earth, and that's natural, but it's also sort of the same frequency, if you like, of the electromagnetic energy that flows through our brains and our bodies. And so the ability to tap into those telluric currents, have them amplify the interests of the user is fairly well documented. Yeah.
And another good case, one of the really good cases, again, which I already knew about anyway, but it's Malcolm Robinson, who's a brilliant researcher in the UK, Scottish guy, and his was the Detriment Woods UFO case. I think you've got an image there of the UFO, which was a huge ball.
Let's see.
I saw that you had one there.
Yeah, I do, in fact. And this is one of the images that blows me away the most, because if it weren't black and white, I would think it was a fucking photograph. It's that good.
That's the one, yeah. And that was the case. It was 1979, and it was in Livingston, central Scotland.
And what are these little round things that look like World War II naval mines?
Yeah, the actual craft. He was actually Robert Taylor was the guy, and he was a forestry worker, a bit like Travis Walton, and Mike, they're all to do in the woods, and he knew the woods really well because that was his job. And he was out walking his dog, came into a clearing, and that was the object that he actually saw in front of him. And those two objects came out from underneath and attacked him. They actually attacked Robert Taylor, and they actually shredded and tore his trousers. And to this day, Malcolm Robinson has still got his trousers. And if you ever hear Malcolm at a talk or anything, he takes the trousers, and you can actually have a look for yourself.
But he wasn't, attacked in the way that Travis Walton was, where they had to take him up in and fix him, was he?
Not what he thinks of. He thinks there was missing time and everything related again. But this was the first case that Malcolm got involved in ufology. Brought him into it.
And this drawing is in UFO Encounters Up Close and Personal. Yes.
Yes, yeah, and this was Malcolm's case. I've actually made a 3D model of that for Malcolm. He's got it in his study.
He doesn't have any available for 3D printing, huh?
Yeah, and anyway, the thing about this case is it's still the only case in the UK that has actually got an assault charge that the police actually investigated the UK police, because obviously Robert was attacked by those. And afterwards, the day after, I think it was, when Malcolm went up to investigate the area, there was actual gouge marks in the ground and everything related. So, it's a really good story, case.
Sorry, my mods are having fun at my expense, and it's really pretty funny. They're talking about I should do a cooking show called Into the Fringe. They're having fun making fun of me. That's all right. They do. I have the best mods on YouTube. I really do. That's very funny. And they're just talking about other stuff. So what do you think it would be if I asked you which investigators stand out the most in this book? I mean, obviously, because you interviewed so many of them and spoke with so many of them, but which investigators do you think stand out the most in the field of ufology, and why?
I can't really say that, because people from all over the world.
Kevin Randall, very interesting. I had lunch with Kevin Randall at a Fortean convention in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, even though his views may have softened over the years a little bit, he's always just a very dapper dressed, very serious person. I mean, he's also a bit of a comedian and likes to joke as much as everybody. He's not like totally stern and mean, but for a while there, he kind of was the Roswell debunker. And I think that he's just accumulated such a great body of knowledge about so many cases, some of which may have happened to him.
Yeah.
That I think that he's one of these people, kind of like you mentioned him before, J. Allen Hynek, who starts out believing one thing and then, because of the preponderance of the evidence, believes it the other direction.
Yeah. It's there are so many people that are credible as researchers.
Back in my previous life, I used to put on UFO lectures here in town, and I brought Stanton Friedman in, was my first big lecture.
Yeah.
And that shook a lot of things loose. UFOs are real. That lecture.
Yeah.
I assume you've seen it.
Yes. Yeah.
Or the documentary that his nephew did, Stanton Friedman is Real.
Yeah, but the Jim Mars, there's a lot of people that are sadly no longer with us, who be really, really good, people within the field and brought the cases to life. Richard Hoagland, so many people. I've watched an awful lot of YouTube videos on their work and their cases, and each time you just want more and more. They're coming out with what they've found on the moon or relation to that, and their background gives them, a lot of credibility. There's others. There was Bob Dean. I'd liked a lot of things he brought out, but there was one actual case he actually brought forward, and again, it was one where it was said that the astronauts on the way to the moon had photographed a UFO, and it was said to be the actual photograph. And it was just one of the many cases that I've looked into, and I got the original serial number of the photograph, because I always try and go to the original. I always try to get the best original that I can get. When I actually looked in the database, you couldn't find that actual image. So all I did is go sort of left and right to the other images within the reel that the NASA, released. Anyway, long story short, I actually found the UFO, or the original photograph. But when I actually went into it and did all the usual analysis, using the Photoshop with the filters and everything to bring up the detail, it was actually the third stage of the Saturn rocket,
which is what NASA said it was.
Yeah, it was the angle that it was tilting, because it went with them to the moon, didn't it? It was still going that direction, and as it tilted up, you could see the top where the fuel tank was. But if you look at the actual image, I just basically did a basic overlay, took the original image, overlay, and it was a perfect match,
Yeah.
So
earlier we were talking about hotspots for UFO sightings in the UK, and Derek McManus says used to be a lot of sightings in central Scotland, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. I mean, the famous case that's just come out now is the Calvin UFO. I don't know if you heard of that. It's supposed to be the famous photograph that was on the door in the Ministry of Defence, where it was a triangle, diamond-shaped craft, but there was a Harrier jump jet RAF plane that was followed it. It's all there. It's actually been put everywhere, but it was brought out. And David Clark, who's a brilliant researcher here in the UK, had actually found the original copy through an officer who was in the Air Force, and he kept an actual copy of the photograph. Because I think there were 6 photographs in total, and they were actually put to the local newspaper in Scotland, and this was the only one that survived. But it's all out there, and it's a really good photograph. But it was 2 hikers that took the photograph, 2 young lads, a series of 6 photographs, and this was the famous image that was supposed to be on the wall in the MOD itself.
And that was something that I wanted to talk to you about specifically was Nick Pope used to work for the MOD.
Mm-hmm.
As it turns out, not really for all that long, but he certainly was the guy at the UFO desk at the MOD, Ministry of Defense. And I'm not sure what it is. Maybe you can put your finger on it, Jason, but something has changed to me about him. I can't really place it, but whereas before he was just sort of this straight, skinny tie guy, pretty straight-laced. I mean, worked for the MOD, obviously. But now he's on every episode of Ancient Aliens and this History Channel and the Discovery Channel, that and whatever. He's on another YouTube channel quite often, or was. But something about him these days smacks of, kind of doing this for a living, going after the paycheck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Being found out.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
no, but it's looking obvious, isn't it? Yeah, and I know
it kind of does, and it just gives me a weird feeling because, I don't think that he's a total shill. I never have. He's certainly very well informed, as you would expect the guy at the UFO desk at the MOD to be. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he's ever said no to a program.
No, he seems to be on everything and everywhere, and
he's kind of worn this Ministry of Defense rug out. you know?
Yeah. I know what you're saying. I know.
I'm not saying he's a bad guy or that he passes on
No.
information that he knows is wrong or anything, but just it seems like something's changed about him to me, you know?
Yeah. It is weird, and you know, I know Philip Mantle in the UK has an awful lot of information and things where it contradicts what Nick has actually said, and whether it's right or wrong, I wouldn't like to say, but yeah, I do agree. He does seem to be on every program that seems to be
just
going.
a little weird.
Yeah.
I mean, once you're out of the loop from being in the MOD, like Nick was, I mean, everything after that is pure speculation. You know, is he, you know, an extremely well-informed source? Yes. Has he read classified and confidential documents about UFOs? Certainly, most certainly. But at what point does he lose his security clearance and can't really talk about anything new with any more specificity or authority than any of the rest of us, you know?
Yeah. That's probably in a nutshell. Yeah. When does it actually stop?
But let's talk about a researcher and someone that's close to your heart, your publisher.
Philip.
I'm not even looking at him. Philip Mantle.
Yeah.
Let's talk about his work in ufology, what he's contributed, not only as a researcher and a publisher, but if you can kind of give us a hit of what he's like as a personality for those that didn't catch the last episode where the two of you were on together.
Philip's a great guy, you know, and he's always there when you need him for something. And really, when I got into the ufology, it was Philip that actually got me to write the books. He actually first said, you know, he's obviously watched what I've done. You know, he's actually seen, you know, the analysis that I've done for people, and you know, and he said, well, why don't you write a book? And I said, well, I've never wrote a book. I'm not a writer. You know, I've wrote books, but I'm not a writer as such. And he was there basically, in a nutshell, helping me right the way through it, you know, and getting the first book out, and you know, and ever since then, I've done an awful lot of books for him. I mean, I've done book covers for everybody. I do an awful lot of book covers for people.
Sure.
Right through from you heard of Paul Sinclair? Yeah, I did his second book cover there. You know, I've done that.
Oh, cool.
I did have a folder somewhere where I've done covers for Virtue, for Malcolm Robinson, for, again, like I showed you before, all these book covers I did myself, and all these other, you know, types of covers.
Yeah. Oh, can you hold those back up?
Yeah.
Those are really, really cool.
Well, this probably going to be one of those. Probably be the book cover for the graphic novel.
Can you get any closer with just one and then the other of them?
What was
that? That's great.
So that was one. And then,
this is going to be such a great book.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting that one out. I mean, if I'd have known, I would have had all the other things.
We've talked a lot about Pascagoula on this channel before, and it bears, you know, talking more about. But it's certainly one of the important cases in all of ufology. Just because of what Calvin remembered and what Charlie Hickson remembered. And, you know, it's for people that don't really do their homework, in ufology, and they don't take it seriously, and they just poo-poo it, and they don't take the time to examine the evidence. There's a lot of really good evidence out there, and one of those really great pieces of evidence is the Pascagoula abduction.
Yeah, it's just one that, again, going way back, it's in all the UFO books and magazines because it's such a famous case, and when you actually get to meet Calvin, or like I have, I've spent time where we've spoken about the case, I just get goose pimples, when he's talking about it, because I obviously things have happened to me, but I was always reading about cases and things through these people, and then when you get to speak to them, like we're speaking now, face to face, and he's actually telling you what happened, and it's something you wrote about, and then you actually come up with an image, like the female extraterrestrial that people have heard of but they've not seen. So when I went through with him, and did the eyes right, the nose, the ears, and everything, and then said, "Is that what you look like? No, this is different. That's different." Mm-hmm. And when I actually showed him the actual final image, he said, "Yeah, that's her straight away." So I feel privileged that I can do that for somebody. Again, it's something that's going to be there when I'm long gone. It'll be in a book, And again, it goes back really, like my father. I was saying earlier on that my father had a Man in Black experience when he was
about that.
When he was a young boy in Liverpool in the UK in the 1950s. Again, my father's ex-military himself, so he's quite a proud guy and stuff. He doesn't talk about UFOs and stuff. He knows what I do,
Mm-hmm.
But one day I was having a beer with him, and he just came out with the story. He said, "Well, I had a strange thing happen to me when I was a young boy," and he was playing in the house. The front door was all bolted up for the evening, and I don't know if I can find the image, and it was all bolted up for the evening, and as he was playing, he said basically a figure manifested itself through the front door right in front of him.
A what did?
A figure of a man. I'm just trying to find the photograph, the image I did for him, if I can find it. And it's not that clear, but you can actually see.
Hang on a second. I'm
see if I'd have known, I'd have got the bigger. There you go. So that was him. He was playing in the hallway. As he ran into the hallway, that figure actually manifested itself through the front door and appeared because all the doors were locked up.
They were talking in the chat earlier about how these things just seem to completely bend the laws of physics as we know them, walking through walls and all kinds of stuff.
And that was basically what happened to him. It came in and he couldn't explain it. It was just something. And he actually explained the figure. And again, that was the image I did out of what he was telling me. And when I put it together, he said it sent shivers down his spine. He said, "Yeah, that was what I saw that night." So I get a buzz. I do get a buzz out of doing images for people and actually bringing to life a story in a different way, for people.
And I think the way that you do that with, your sculpture and your artwork is really great. I mean, I used to be an artist before, you know how in like high school art class, the art teacher will like break you down and then build you back up in the correct structured way. Yeah. Well, mine just broke me down. and she failed to like rebuild me in the correct way. So I stopped being like a, you know, pencil and paper artist or a brush and ink artist, and do all of my art digitally these days, like sheet clay prints and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like I said, it just must be incredibly fulfilling to see your work, you know, on this subject, grace the covers of so many other people's great books, and obviously your own. I mean, I'm, I guess, what you'd call a creative, and the only thing that occurs to me is how satisfying it must be for somebody from your perspective, like this, for instance. You know, I haven't even read this book. Well, what can you tell us about Roswell alien autopsy?
Philip really had an awful lot to do with the alien autopsy. You know, the video that's out, the footage.
Was he the guy that was responsible for bringing Ray Santilli forward?
Yeah, he was all part of it. Actually, if you read the book, it's actually all part of, you know, that story, and in the way Ray had actually faked the actual footage, and the way they made it, and they filmed it on the old original film. They did everything. They covered all the dots and
they covered all their bases, yeah,
to make it look like it was actually filmed, and you know, right the way down. And people still say, you know, it's real. And again, Ray and all said, well, it's not because I made it, you know. So it's one of those that it's going to rumble on and rumble on. But Philip has had an awful lot to do with it right the way through, you know.
That's very interesting. I think after Ray Santilli got his paycheck from Fox, he knew that was going to be the end of it. Although how they got all those experts at Industrial Light and Magic back then to say, yeah, that's exactly how a body should bleed when you cut it. You know, it'd be extremely difficult. It would cost us millions to make something do that for a film.
Yeah.
And all these other, you know, special effects guys are agreeing, yeah, this would be impossible to fake, and stuff like that. And then there's the whole bit about them filming what actually was filmed that they saw, but they didn't have access to. So it was a definite hoax, but of a real event. That you know, I'm sorry, but fool me once, shame on you type of deal, you know.
Yeah, it still goes down as a famous case, isn't it? You know.
I remember when it happened, you know, I made copies that said, set your VCR to stun, because I thought it was really going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there have been any number of hoaxed humanoid cases. And then, you know, one of our regular fan favorites here on Into the Fringe is Albert Rosales. And he does his Humanoid Encounters, The Other Among Us series about all the different types of beings that have been seen. He has a database of almost 30,000 different cases. Wow. And it used to be online, and I used to just read through it for like 3 days at a time. It was so gripping and interesting. For people that think that grays are all that there are out there, you know, it's not the case.
So much bigger. There was another really good case that the footage again is on my YouTube channel, but it was an Argentinian pilot who contacted me. He'd actually seen craft before, and he knew he was going to see UFOs again he never had a camera with him at all at the time, and it was about 2014, and he had his camera, his mobile phone with him this time, and the two craft, and I actually analysed the footage. It's actually on there, but that's the, if you can see on there, is with the view that he had out of his aircraft.
Wow.
And you can see the elongated craft that buzzed his aircraft right in front. And
yeah,
I
like
still
a cigar shaped.
Yeah, it's the best piece of footage out there at the minute. But I've actually had this on, I think it's Paranormal Court on Camera. It's aired, and I think it's on the first episode of the second series. And I break it down, but basically he films the two craft coming in, buzz his aircraft, and then they go off in a figure of 8 and do a formation to his right-hand side, and then buzz his aircraft again. And I advise anyone to actually go and see that, because I still think it is one of the best pieces of footage out there.
That's that's pretty interesting. Let's talk Kathleen Martin. She's a very interesting researcher. I give her all the credit in the world for co-writing books with Stanton Friedman. She's got a pretty great science pedigree, as you mentioned. She saw, Betty and Barney pretty much as soon as they got back. What else can you tell us about what she's investigated?
Well, she just delves into all the cases the same. She's become a really good investigator, and her work stands out, not just obviously because of Betty and Barney, outright herself, really. And she worked a lot with Stanton Friedman, didn't she? She was closely working with him, right the way through, became good friends.
Yeah.
And again, I held her in high esteem, really, just up there. And I'm really, really happy that she came forward, and gave an account for the book, and especially the famous case of which it is. And again, it's very similar to Mike Rogers, somebody else who's actually part of the bigger case, but they're on the fringe of the bigger case, but they're just as important as Betty and Barney, because she was hearing firsthand.
She corroborates their story.
Yeah. Of actually, the emotions they were feeling at the time, and everything else that goes with it, So, and again, who she's gone on to work with, and again, in her own right, what she's actually done. So, yeah, it is very much like Mike, the same, with Travis. They go over and talk about the same thing that happened, but in a different way, a different perspective.
Let's briefly, before it gets time, I think we have about 20 minutes. It depends on when anti-derivative Jill, that's my best sports car line, gives us the 5-minute warning for people to give away. Let's talk about some people in the book. Just kind of briefly, extemporaneously, as you like. There's a lot of people to cover, but I'd like to point out a couple and just kind of put you on the spot. Do a little pop quiz since you're the author of the book. You know all the answers anyway. But Donald R. Schmidt.
Find him. Yeah, Donald. I actually did Donald's book cover for his new book.
He's cooperated with other UFO investigators quite a bit.
Yeah.
Tom Berliner, and he and when I was at the last UFO lecture here in town, he and Bryce Zabel were seated together at a table, and they were going over some stuff, which it looked to me like they were putting together like their next book. But he's definitely collaborated with a lot of people.
Yeah, he worked, again, brilliant researcher, but his actual case that brought him in was Roswell, you know, and he actually, the image I've done in the book to go with it, but he goes over really what had happened, you know, and how he was brought in, and then other things that happened, you know, that went on. But I actually did his book cover for his new book that's just come out.
That's great.
A photograph of it. I was contacted again through Philip, you know, to do it that way for him. I was trying to think in the book. I mean, have you heard of the Philip and Ronald Kinsella from here in the UK, the twin brothers?
I don't know if I have.
No, they're very, very good. You should have them as guests, really, on your show, because they actually the cases that they go over, and again, you know, the experiences they both had. And I've actually analysed images of a triangular shaped craft for them that they actually saw.
By all means, have Phyllis hook us up. Philip, not Phyllis. I need more coffee.
But so many people. Again, the list in the book goes on. Again, Peter Slattery in there. You know, he goes over a lot. You mentioned
Malcolm Robinson before. Yeah. And right underneath him, Paul Askoff, I was talking with Philip about getting him on the show.
Yeah.
And I thought that we were going to get there, but we never did.
You should.
I imagine he's pretty busy.
He's I'm sure he'll come on. You know, he's just brought up. I did his book cover as well for his book. But he's an ex-military guy himself and a medic for the National Health. He retired now. And again, it goes over his case as a young boy with his brother, and he saw with his father the lights that came over. You know, and again, I think I did illustrations to go, because again, a lot of these cases have not got photographs to back them up or anything. You're actually going over. But I remember one good case through Nigel Watson, another researcher in the UK, and he talks about the Adamski case that got him involved in ufology. And one of the images that I've got on there to go with his case was one that I analysed of New Mexico when they were testing the first nuclear bombs, the actual ground detonations they were.
Like Trinity.
And long story short, it's the I can find it for you, it's easy to show you, but it actually shows you the detonation within the first milliseconds of the explosion going off. And on the ground, right next to the blast, is an Adamski-shaped craft sat on the ground.
No kidding.
So if I show you, I actually found it. Again, it was another one that I was going through, and I thought, wow, when I saw it myself, it's easy to show you. 237. Yeah. Again, it's more difficult to show you, but see the photograph there? And there's the actual blast within the first milliseconds of the detonation.
Wow.
And actually on the ground there, you can see an Adamski-shaped craft sat on the ground when I've enlarged it there.
Wow. I bet it got the hell out of there real quick.
Yeah, which is the same as that type of... Well, I think they could probably take nuclear blast. It's the technology they've got.
I have to say, the fact that we detonated 2 atomic bombs in wartime, and the U.S. remains the only nation that's used nuclear weapons in a hostile way. The UFOs kind of started showing up after that in the modern era, and I take it you've seen the Ronald D. Moore reboot of Battlestar Galactica, the very fine science fiction film program, rather.
Yeah.
One thing that happens in that is that they've sort of finally gotten away from the Cylons. And spoilers, by the way, if you haven't seen this show, it's only 20 years old. One of the Sixes asks Baltar to give her access to a nuclear warhead, and he does. And she sets it off and blows away, part of the fleet. And it turns out the Cylons show up a year later, and they're like, yeah, we saw where you were because of the atomic blast.
Yeah.
And it always makes me think that, Stanton Friedman used to talk a lot about, aliens probably don't want us to take our brand of friendship up to the Galactic Federation or whatever. So it always reminds me of that.
Yeah. It's as soon as the saying is the children have found the matches, isn't it? When
exactly
they started.
Right. I used to be such a little pyro when I was a kid. Okay, let's rapid fire a couple of these. How about Robbie Graham?
Trying to find Robbie. I have to go over.
He's a musician, I believe, primarily.
Yeah, but he's also a presenter and researcher himself, within the UK. But Robbie, again, through his sightings, was trying to find the case.
I think his first book, at least that I became aware of, was Reframing the Debate, UFOs Reframing the Debate. And he had, everybody and their dog write a chapter for that book.
Yeah.
But no, it's a really good book. I'm pretty sure that Micah Hanks has a chapter. Joshua Cutchin has a chapter. Susan Demeter has a chapter. Who else? Greg Bishop has a chapter. I don't know if Christopher O'Brien has one or not, but that's his main claim to fame that I'm familiar with as far as ufology is concerned.
Yeah, but Robbie's actual his case he brought forward was a sighting again that he actually had again with it when he was at school and things, and again with an illustration there of the craft that we saw, the orb-shaped craft over. And it just goes over a lot of the people in the book when they do recall what they've seen and then go over it. It is quite detailed to actual places, because when I forgot their accounts, I could actually do a lot of research and make sure what I was illustrating was accurate, and everything I did, I sent back to the person to make sure it was what they saw. If they wanted anything changing, if they wanted it, elaborating to what they actually saw or not.
Let me ask you this, Jason. Sort of toward the end of the book, there's the final word. Where is ufology going, and have we arrived? And then, of course, further reading from Flying Disc Press, which I would expect any decent publisher to add. In your opinion, where is ufology going, and have we arrived? Is there at least some kind of partial disclosure?
Well, we talk about disclosure, but I disclosure's already happened. It just because of the mere fact of the information that's out there, that the photographic, I can provide an awful lot of images of crafts, beings that people have sent me, and I put my name to them that I actually believe when I've gone through the analysis of those images and footage. So when people say about disclosure, and is it close? Is it coming? Is the US government, what they're doing now with Nimitz, Tic Tac, is this all part of the disclosure? They're trying to drip feed the general public of actually what is out there. We all know, all of us within ufology, we've gone past that now of actually saying, what are they, etc. We know that they're here. We know disclosure's been here a long time. It's been here an awful long time.
They've definitely acclimated those of us that are going to be acclimated toward it.
Yeah. And like I say in the book, in the final word, where I talk about Gary McKenna, the English hacker, as we call him, who hacked into the NASA.
He didn't actually hack into anything.
No.
They had failed to set up their new network with passwords.
Yeah.
He just entered. He just hit enter, and it was in there. He didn't actually hack anything. He was stoned.
Yeah. But he actually found.
And he's also somewhere on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, which I am as well. But not to say that he's not intelligent or anything, because I think that he is. But I mean, it didn't take an Einstein to, find their way into there and find their list of extraterrestrial officers.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is the Space Force, and again now, which that's all out now, isn't it? The Air Force and Marine
space program.
Yeah, and again, it's all part of the drip feed. They've had these craft for a long time. They've been using them and going off-world, as we say. So introducing the Space Force is actually just another drip feed effect.
I suppose you're right. I hadn't thought about
disclosure.
That.
Yeah, and again, slowly you're going to start seeing things like the triangle-shaped craft, etc. And they'll say, well, and they'll be saying, well, we've had these all along. We've been using these. They haven't been extraterrestrial craft. They've just been the
I think it's very
story.
telling. I think it's very telling that when they did the articles in Politico and the New York Times in December of 2017 and sort of shifted everything to UAP so it wouldn't have all the ridicule baggage that they put on UFOs for 75 years. That nobody batted an eye. Nobody cared. It was like, so we call this Thursday.
Yeah.
It's the big deal.
And that is exactly right. They've tried to rebrand it under UAP, and to me,
rebranding it to
UAP,
me
personally, it's still UFO. Yeah.
If that's what it takes to get them to give us more than a drip feed, I'll call them UAP. Yeah. It doesn't matter what you call them, because the people out there, and again, you've probably had experiences with the people who have had abductions, etc. related. It's real to them. It's definitely happened. They've had the guts to come out and talk about it. And if not what they think it is, it's certainly deserving of research, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think we know better, but any of these phenomena that they keep throwing out as reasons for what might slip out at one point or another that especially the United States government has done, like the Captain Thomas Mantell case. He said on his radio that he was going after this enormously large craft that was what's the phrase? The opposite of a dive.
Like ascending.
Climbing, yeah.
Yeah.
He was climbing after this thing, and it was climbing, and things didn't end up going so well for him. But they said that he died of hypoxia chasing the planet Venus, and that was back when we trusted the government.
Yeah. And that's what's all wrong about the whole thing, is it's been there all along in front of us, and okay, people are waking up to it now. More and more people are actually waking up to this. And I've mentioned this before, I try to go to as many conferences and talks as I can, just like most of us, because we like to be around the people that go to these places as well.
Sure.
Just seem to fit. But
and
when
let's face it, we're more likely to sell books and stuff like that at UFO conventions.
Yeah, but the people, the caliber of people that go to these talks now and conferences has changed completely. You've got people in like policemen and judges and people like that who go into these things. Instead, when we probably started, we were all called the tinfoil hat brigade or whatever.
Right.
So more and more people are waking up to what is actually happening, and especially what else is happening in the world as well.
Before we finish up the eligibility for people to enter the giveaway, can you plug your books, Flying Disc Press? How do we get a hold of you? What is your website, Facebook page, etc.?
Yeah, if anybody ever wants any analyzing of images or footage, I don't charge anybody for this. I never have done. I always believe that everybody should be on the same playing field when it comes to, information. It should be readily available.
I wish MUFON shared your feelings.
Yeah, well, yeah, but that's the way I've always looked at it, and that's the way I will look at it.
No, I agree. Yeah. Open source UFOs for sure.
Yeah. And but anyway, if they want advice or if they want me just to take a look and try to authenticate something, or
maybe get in touch with you for a cover of their book.
Yeah, that as well. But they can get hold of me through Facebook, through UF Only, the Facebook page, and then we can take it from there. If they want to do anything with it.
That's the easiest way to get a hold of you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times I'll actually analyze images for people, and they don't want to go public with it. They just want to know what they've seen, and that I'm totally fine with that, because I've analyzed it for them. What they do with it is up to them. That's the way I look at it.
You've gotten used to like paying attention to the metadata and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's just the way I work. It's
is that stuff pretty hard to fake?
To be honest, you can fake anything. Realistically, And again, if you actually
are there certain like triggers in metadata that stand out to you, or that you've gone, I can tell that's a hoax?
Not really, because like I said, any of it could be faked. It's more really the actual footage itself. I try and find out off the person a little bit about them. I try and, you can generally, little alarm bells will come up when you talk to somebody, and then I go through every single analyzing stage with the person. I'll try and get the original footage, the original whatever, and take it from there. And then I'll always show them what I do. I always tell them what I'm doing. It's not a secret. I don't hold back anything, from them. And, again, say I did it for you, I'd just give you that information back. And then if you want to go further with it, that's entirely up to you. If you want to put it on for other people to view, that's the way I see it. Or if they just want it for themselves, because not everybody does want to come forward,
Yeah, I think that's important to keep in mind. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can pull our mod Antiderivative Jill into the stream with us. So, Jason, I hope you're sitting down. This could get shaky. Whoa. Okay, it looks like Jill's camera is off and her avatar is off. Jill, can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Doing great. How are you doing today?
Great. Glad you could join us.
Thanks.
Have you harvested many names for our wheel?
There are 5 names on the wheel today.
Well, let's take a look at that wheel. So we've got Gap After Dark, Don McDouglas, Mr. M.H.
Oh, you know what? I think that there might be... Oh, yeah. Never mind. It's
Monster
fine.
Huntress is on there twice.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It looks
Yeah.
like there's the same name there. Let me fix that.
Okay. So, waiting with great anticipation, Jason. This is the part of the show that everybody looks forward to, and I will take this opportunity to say, please subscribe if you like this content. I just have a little itty bitty channel, but could
Actually,
definitely use help.
Those were different people.
Oh, they were.
It just seemed like the same person.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
I apologize, Jason.
That's fine.
I've been in love with Commonwealth accents all my life, and so I just kind of do it, and I don't even think about it. And then I'm like, oh my god, I'm on with somebody from the UK. Oh my god. I studied my Irish accent for 2 years before I was willing to break it out in public, and I thought it was pretty good. And then I decided to study the Scots accent. And I realize when I say Irish accent, Scots accent, that's incredibly broad. But once I thought I had that pretty good, that I was, able to break that out. And then when I went back to Irish, it was completely fucked. I couldn't do either of them for shit. And Shooter 8323 says that he's in lurk mode. And Cam's Crash Courses is in the house. Says Cardinal Sin, hail Cardinal and Jason, listening on the road. Have fun, everyone.
Hi, Cam.
And we've got folks here from all over the world. From Portugal and Australia and Brazil, and we have people from all over.
Well, there are a lot of people going into podcast mode, and this is definitely a good one to podcast.
Derek McManus. He's also in the UK. So, is everyone in the UK on Greenwich Mean Time?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Even like the Isle of Man and
all of us. Yeah, Scotland,
Inner
England,
and Outer Hebrides.
Yeah, Shetlands, right off, right.
Cool. All right, I see that we have the street,
yes,
wheel.
Yes, those two names look similar, but they're different. They're different viewers. So, you ready?
Monster Maniac Mexico, Monster Huntress. Yeah, that's right. Yes, please. Let's do See My Head Spin.
Guess I didn't have sound, but it's all right.
Oh well. Congratulations, Monster Huntress Rune.
Yeah. Hey, well done.
Congratulations.
So I will ask her, I presume.
I actually have to dash. I really have to go. I got stuff to do, so.
Well, thanks for helping out.
You're welcome.
Right. Yeah.
I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Monster Huntress Rune, please get a hold of me. At the email address on your screen, gil@sunflower.com. And yes, congrats all around.
Hey.
So it pays to watch Into the Fringe. Is there anything else that you wanted to plug, Jason?
No, I was just about to say the books, the 3 books, the UFO photo, the Ufology Umbrella, and the new book UFO Photo Encounters. They're all available on Amazon or through Flying Disc Press, through Philip Mantle. And can
we order directly from Philip, like from his website?
Yeah, I think you can.
Does that help?
That way, or Amazon, like I said, it's just as easy. Whatever's easiest for the person. Yeah. And then there's a couple of documentaries out there that if anyone's interested. The Multidimensional, which is with Peter Slattery, James Gilliland, and Barry Rodwell, etc. That's really good. I'd like everyone to watch that if they can, because they'll get to see the ET and everything on there. And the other documentary I've just done last year, I think we completed it, was the Pentagon Files, and we talk about the Tic Tac Nimitz encounters, and that's generally all the British ufologists were talking about it.
What's that one called?
That's called the Pentagon Files. So that's available on Amazon Prime and iTunes and all that. So, and there's also a couple of documentaries on my YouTube channel if anybody wants to watch those as well.
Definitely.
So, yeah, it's all there for everybody.
Well, thanks again, brother, for coming back on the show. Definitely looking forward to having you on, and we should have you on more than once a year, I feel.
Yeah, brilliant. It's my pleasure. I really enjoy, we can chat UFOs and just bounce things around.
Talking UFOs is a lot of fun, but it goes by so quickly. It's hard to really sift out the needles from the hay,
Yeah.
We'll leave with this phrase from Masters Maniac Mexico. I live in Tepoztlan, also very famous for UFO sightings.
Yeah. Bit of a hot spot.
Right. Well, that will do it for this week's Into the Fringe. And it's Cardinal Sin